Hi, I'm Sylvia D'Silva. Well, I've always received hundreds of queries regarding watercolor papers, so I have a little treat for you. This is one of my favorite watercolor paintings that I have made, and I decided it would be nice to make a beautiful archival print of it. And it has a beautiful watercolor quote that says, "Do not make watercolors behave, they are rebellious." So what comes with this is a bunch of watercolor papers. So let me show you all the watercolor papers that are in this package. 13 different watercolor paper samples in this. Let me go through each of those and tell you what it is. This one is Bristol 25% cold pressed 300 GSM watercolor paper. You can see it has a bit of a texture. So the 25% has more texture than the 100% cotton. The next one I have is Brustro 100% rough 300 GSM watercolor paper. You can see the texture in this. The next one I have is Brustro 100% cotton hot pressed 300 GSM. So you can see it barely has any texture and it is a very smooth surface. Next is Brustro 100% cold pressed 300 GSM watercolor paper. Now this has a bit of a texture but a little less than the 25%, and this is great. It takes in a lot of water. Coming up next is my personal favorite. This is Strathmore 400 series 300 GSM 100% cotton watercolor paper, and this is the best paper I have used so far and easily available in India now. And this one is slightly larger than most of the other samples that I have. Next I have Mont Marte 180 GSM acid free 100% cotton paper. The next one is the heaviest paper of the bunch. This is Chitrapat 440 GSM 100% cotton, and you can see the texture. It's kind of a rough texture, but this paper is great for watercolors and also for acrylics. I have made acrylic paintings on these and it takes in so much water and it's really good. Next I have Derwent 300 GSM 100% cotton watercolor paper, and I have made one of my best paintings on this. Next up is Fabriano Artistico cold pressed 300 GSM watercolor paper. Now you can see this is a bit off-white and it has a bit of a texture. Let me follow that with Fabriano Artistico hot pressed watercolor paper, and this is quite smooth as you can see, and again this is 300 GSM. Next I have Arch watercolor paper. Now this everyone wants to try out because it's the best paper available according to most watercolor artists, and I really love how smooth this is. This is called a satin texture and it's really good if you want to get fine details in. Next up is Moulin du Roi watercolor paper. Now this is more white compared to a lot of other watercolor papers, and this is 300 GSM cold press, so you can see it has a bit of a texture. And last but not the least, I have Fabriano Artistico 25% cold pressed watercolor paper. It has a bit of a texture again, more than the 100%. So I have 13 different watercolor paper samples for you to try out, all with this fabulous print of watercolor painting that I made myself. So mind you, this size is kind of perfect to get started with, and you can even, if your painting turns out beautiful and fabulous as you wish, then you can actually frame this. I even made paintings of this size and framed it and put it up in my very first art shows. So don't think it is too small to make a painting. You can actually use all of these 13 papers to make beautiful watercolor paintings and frame them or sell them, or however you wish. You can use it for Instagram. And imagine if you had bought each of these watercolor papers, even if you bought a single sheet of each or a pad of each of these, it would cost you thousands of rupees. And I'm making all of these samples available along with this gorgeous print for 800 rupees. So to all those watercolor enthusiasts who've been asking me about which watercolor paper is great, and I want to try out this one but it's so expensive, here's a solution for you. You can try out all of these 13 watercolor papers for a mere price of 800 rupees, and all you have to do is get in touch with me on Instagram or any of my other social media sites. So what are you waiting for? Just go ahead and leave me that message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And wishing you all the very best.